Howdy, folks. No.
The Tenere is the most fun to ride.
Really?
But, you know, now...
We're out here riding today. We got Thomas with me. Rocky decided to just blow us off again and go somewhere, you know, do some, I don't know, it's something to do with the family. Thomas did something crazy. For those of y'all that have been around, y'all will remember him from the Utah trip that we did. Yeah, we did half the Utah BDR, and that was fun. And then down through Colorado, New Mexico, that shit, yeah, we had a blast doing that. But he was on an 890 and I was on my 1290.
Just no more negativity this time.
Yeah, the negativity, that shit was funny. That was a long day. That was a long day. Yeah, if you've done long, hard rides and you know, attitudes, yeah, that's another reason why going with a group of people that you don't know, yeah, tempers could flare. You know, I was bouncing back and forth between selling my 1290 or not. Well, he was bouncing back and forth with getting rid of his 890. And he did. He got rid of his 890 for a dadgum Tenere. Is that crazy or what?
I'm glad I did.
Why? I mean, I'm like, dude, the 890, they say the 890 is so much better than the Tenere. Yes, it's got better suspension, but so this is your first gravel road trip on that bike, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's, I mean...
This suspension isn't even set up for me yet.
No, it's not.
I can already tell it's better.
Yeah, and it's factory suspension. Whenever I rode my bike, I rode it for 1,000 miles to see what the suspension was like. And honestly, on the trails is where I found its limits, is on the trails. And if you're not going to ride trails, then, you know, the suspension is fine. But for us heavier guys like me at the time, I weighed 230. And I couldn't get the preload. I couldn't get my sag adjusted. So you definitely need springs, and that's what we did.
I'm definitely going to do that for sure.
Yeah, that's what we did with Rocky's bike. And you know, just for BDRs, it's fine. But if you throw any weight, like the luggage on that bike,
you gotta have a spring.
Yeah. I mean, it's going. You're going to be.
And we haven't gone over anything that's really like big rocks or anything for it to bottom out either. So.
No, if we were in Utah and you were on that bike, I
would be feeling it for sure.
Exactly. So that bike doesn't even have 200 miles on it, and you've already got the skid plate, a slip-on,
front fender.
Yeah, the high fender kit, the levers, the foot pegs. Yeah, the foot pegs.
It made a big difference.
Yeah, to me, the foot pegs weren't horrible on the factory ones. I mean, they were a lot bigger than on the Africa Twin.
Oh yeah.
You know, them Africa Twin pegs were just horrible.
It's just evolving, you know, like the more, you know, all the people that are building these bikes, you know, they're evolving with the way things are going, and everything's going off-road, man, ADV.
That's the market. I mean, it's like maybe we're one-sided, but you don't see a whole lot of advertisements for a lot of these sport bikes anymore. It's mostly adventure bikes. Yeah. You know, they are coming a long way. Like the power on this bike, factory is okay, but you haven't ridden mine. Rocky's ridden mine, and Rocky's a lot heavier than you are, and he could feel the power difference, and he was like, I've got to get that. Because honestly, with the Cat Delete and the Tune, that's the way this bike, I think, should be. Because not that it's lacking in power off-road, it depends on your riding. If you want to get a little more frisky and aggressive, that little extra power does help. And it's maybe only a 5 horsepower gain, but it's the torque and the throttle response that you can feel. But no, like whenever I did that wheelie, that was all third gear power wheelie. That was no clutch.
Yeah, you hung that thing for a good ways, man, good ways.
Yeah, yep, and that was uphill, wasn't it? It was on a slight.
It was on an incline, uphill. And you were standing up. So,
yeah. The 1290 and the 890, they do just have so much power, and you've got to be really conscious of your riding. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. You felt the difference in the cornering, because that is still my main thing, why I don't want to take the 1290 on these roads.
And you know, to me it doesn't make sense, because you would think if the center of gravity was lower, it would be easier to corner. And I'm going to tell you, that last ride that we did on the Mashroom, I'm going to tell you that it was night and day difference from riding the 890 on the Mashroom and then riding the Tenere today.
Really?
I felt like on the 890, we were going around those gravel turns.
Yeah.
It was just sketchy feeling, and this thing, I feel right at home, comfortable.
See, and that's the deal. Like my buddy Rod, the guy on the 701. Yeah. That's why what he told me, because he used to live in Australia. He's ridden a lot of good places. He said that the KTM is, if you want to turn it, you got to request and written permission to turn that damn bike. And that's what I've been noticing with the KTM is it's harder to turn it. I mean, it's not hard and it'll go, but it seems like you got to put a little more effort. You almost
feel like, you feel like there's a little bit of resistance when you're trying to make that turn.
Right. But going straight on those gravel roads, shit, man, that thing will track straight because of the low center of gravity.
I mean, they're both good bikes, and don't get me wrong. I mean, the KTM was an awesome bike. I pretty much unloaded the KTM just because of the fact that they were having camshaft problems. Yeah. And I didn't know if there was going to be any product support later on with all of the stuff going on. So, and I'm actually glad I did now. I mean, I got a brand new bike out of it. Yep. It didn't cost me very minimal to even make the switch. And I got warranty on this bike, and I'm actually loving this bike. Yeah. I mean, I'm loving it.
I know, me too. That's why I say I've put almost the same amount of miles on the Tenere as I have on the KTM, and I've had the KTM a year longer than I've had the Tenere, and I've almost got the same amount of mileage on the Tenere as I do the KTM. But that's the thing. Products for KTM, even if KTM were to go under, that's why I see a lot of people kind of concerned about that. But man, there's so many aftermarket parts for the KTM. The parts, and plus it's such a badass bike. I mean, it really is a great bike. Yeah. But the little differences tailored to how you ride, to each his own, and everybody's going to have a different riding style and opinion and whatever. But as far as us, we kind of feel the same way about the bike. And even though his was an 890, mine was is a 1290, there's not a whole lot of difference other than power.
Just power. Just,
the size. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the size. I mean,
they're close in weight. They're close in everything else.
Yeah, you put them side by side. Yeah, it's they're not far off from each other. Now, getting it off of the kickstand, you could definitely tell a difference on the 1290 versus the 890. Yeah, the 890 feels more like a sport bike to me. After wrestling, with the 1290, but on the wheels, 1290, it feels like the Tenere going slow, but once you speed up, you start feeling that weight a little more, but the Tenere, I think people talk about, it's top heavy. Well, that top heaviness, I think, helps it in getting into the turns quicker. That's why I like it on the trails. But that's the other thing about owning a KTM that you touched on. Is, man, that longevity, that reliability, just, man, especially the 890s, the 1290s, I got caught up in all that stuff. The 1290s don't really have a problem. They got your typical electrical gremlins.
You just had little fidgety things that was going on with your bike. But I never had any problems with my bike. I mean, I just didn't want to get to that point, and then, what is it worth if the cam's bad on it?
Yeah. So that's the thing is where, a lot of people why probably KTM didn't realize that it was a problem, because a lot of people trade their bikes in around 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
And it was those guys that were going beyond 10,000 miles that started having the camshaft problems. Those that's the thing, so that's why I think, I'm not taking up for KTM because they really shafted me on my front wheel on my 1290. Yeah. They really did. 3 days outside of warranty, and they said, nope, if I would have brought it in 3 days before, they would have warranted my wheel and gave me a new front wheel because it bounces.
Mine did too, remember?
Yeah.
I never fixed mine.
No, all those KTMs, man.
I just kept popping wheelies.
Yeah. Eventually it'll bend it back. Yeah. It's easy to do with them bikes. Yeah. But that's
probably the only thing that I miss is just having that little extra power when I want to gas it up. It's a lot easier than
that one you got to clutch it up or bounce it up. But that's the thing. Like with the Africa Twins, that bike was just so boring on the road because you got that wind protection. And because this has about, has less horsepower, but it weighs less than the Africa Twin.
Yeah.
But it feels more fun on the road. I guess because you get more wind rush.
I mean, I've gone full circle. I've had an XR 650. I've had a CRF 450R. Then I got the Africa Twin.
Yep.
Then I got the KTM, and now I'm on the Tenere. And I'm telling you, out of all the bikes that I've had so far, the Tenere is the most fun to ride.
Really?
But, now as far as like riding, 1,600 miles, I still think this seat's more comfortable than any bike I've had because this seat doesn't bother me like any of the other bikes did.
I know that's the thing. After having that Multistrada and that Africa Twin, I think that just calloused my butt up or something because I got on this bike. I got on the 1290. The 1290, your 890 that's horrible. But my 1290 seat, I haven't needed to change it. It's the factory seat. The factory seat on the Tenere, I have not needed to change it. And even whenever I was on the Utah BDR last year, on that long run from the end of the BDR from Idaho, and I kind of took the long way back to Green River, which was right around 560 miles. I could have shortened it up, but I didn't want to get on the highway. I didn't want to go through Salt Lake City. I was like, screw that. I'll go back the back way. So, and that was around 560 miles. My butt never felt like it would have, because, whenever we were riding, we were hanging our ass cheeks off of one side, doing that.
It was like sitting on a 4x4 block of wood.
Man, that sucked. So,
and I even had a pad on mine, and I was still doing that.
Yeah, so. I didn't have one on mine. I had one when I went solo. Later on that year, when I went solo, I bought that pad, and it helped a little bit. But the thing about having one of those pads is if you put a little bit of air in it, once you get up in the mountains, it starts expanding. And I was like, man, something's weird. And I reached down and feel it. I had to do the thing to let air out of it. And then whenever I get back down, I had to put some more air back in it. The Tenere has not been a disappointing purchase. I have not thought about even trading that thing in or selling it.
Well, I've been doing a little bit of homework on them, and I've watched you ride in yours and got the feedback from you on how much you like it and the advantages and disadvantages. And I'm just telling you, the advantages for me outweigh the disadvantages by far, just for the simple fact that it's more fun to ride. It's still light enough that you can single track it if you want to.
Oh yeah.
And they're not that expensive. I mean, you think of the price, man. That thing's probably $6,000 less than what it would cost me to get that KTM that I got.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, by the time you add everything to it, you could have bought a KTM." But
that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, it is building your own, tailoring it, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. The Tenere is just a foundation. It's like a flat foundation that you can build however you want. You can build it as a cruiser. You can build it as a single track bike. You can try and take all the weight off of it you can and make it a freaking Pol Torres bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great foundation to do what you want with it. And suspension, people spend thousands of dollars, like that tractive suspension. I was like, dude, if you got the money, buy it. That's some badass suspension. But for the way I ride, and I still ride the trails fairly aggressive, factory suspension, that's all you need. I mean, it really is. Then now, what I do miss is the high-speed compression. That kind of helps keep the bike at a certain deal. It's not necessarily, your compression. It just holds it at a certain thing. High-speed compression kind of gets confusing as far as setting it up.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's about the only thing I do miss. But it's not worth $1,500 for a new shock. No. Because that's what I would have to do is replace that whole shock with a $1,500, like Touratech shock.
Yeah.
I still might one day.
I think one thing that I'm definitely going to invest in, and it's just something that I feel like I'm going to be more comfortable with, is I want to put a Scott's steering dampener on there. I think it'll help, especially, going a little faster in the gravel. It'll keep you from having that little bit of that jerk.
Yep.
Where it wasn't too bad. I didn't actually have a problem with it today, but
Yeah.
I think once I get my suspension set up and it's a little stiffer, it may have a little bit more.
It will be a hell of a lot better because, like I said, I wanted to ride mine at least 1,000 miles on everything to figure out what people were talking about. The suspension sucks. It doesn't necessarily suck. It just depends on how you ride it and what you're going to do with it. So, but whenever I put those aggressive knobbies on the tire, on that bike, yeah, it was bad. I did not want to go above 70 miles an hour. I was like, I'm getting me a steering damper. I was like, no, let me get my suspension done. Got my suspension done. 75, 80 miles an hour, whatever. It did not wiggle like it did on the factory system. That's where I started learning. I've always known suspension is key.
Yeah.
The stabilizer for gravel and sand. That's the only reason. And now I'm so used to it, it would be just a waste of money for me because I'm just used to it. It's no big deal because I just let the grip loose and
just let the bike do its thing.
Yeah, just kind of wiggle. Now if it gets too bad, then I kind of put a little bit. It's just you got to feel it. That's just like riding. You got to feel it. Yeah, steering stabilizer, it would be worth it. If you got that money. But I also got my suspension revalved.
Yeah.
The valving, it really, it's best to do a complete suspension rebuild, but just springs for BDR rides, it's fine. And normal riding, just change the springs.
Yeah.
It'll be less harsh, if you get the valving.
And that's probably what I'm going to do. Is I'm probably going to do the springs and get it revalved, and
that would be best. I mean, it's really worth it because once I readjust mine for the BDR trips, it's really plush. It doesn't feel like the KTM. KTM's got really good suspension. I mean, my 1290 does. I don't know about yours. Mine, that KTM.
It had good suspension on that 890.
Yeah, like whenever we first got there to Utah, all those washboards, couldn't even feel them.
They were like not even there.
Yeah, you can feel them on that damn thing. Well, anyways, I'm gonna wrap this one up. If you're really thinking about a 890 or a Tenere 700, do your homework. This proves it right here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the T7 is really an underestimated bike. Don't even sweat the power. I mean, if you want, the bike is fun as it is. You do a tune and a cat delete, it makes it even funner. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Peace.